where I would be cautious again is this industry also needs to mature. I mean, I'm a little bit older than my colleagues and my competitors. I've seen many times these good ideas that if they're not organized properly will lead to probably an industry that doesn't fulfill its potential. Whether that be because it's going to be more regulated than it should, whether that it's because there will be people that are so much um, overpromise and underdeliver that the co-living industry gets a bad name. In Europe, we had a number of bankruptcies of people that signed leases at very high leases and could not fulfill the lease requirements, the rent requirements, and so went bankrupt or were could no longer afford to pay the rents. Of course, this is public. Institutions start to get nervous about this, etc. So we have to have an industry that starts to organize itself, and of course, there's a lot of initiatives already, but starts to mix the cool aspect of it with the professional management aspect that are very important for this industry to grow and succeed.
Christine here with another fun, exciting episode of the Co-Living Code Show every single Wednesday on YouTube, on Spotify, SoundCloud, and iTunes. And if you guys can write us a super quick review, we'd really appreciate it. And I want to give ISL Furnishings a quick shout out. They are a brand created through Inner Space Living, and they are all about creating exciting spaces where design meets function. Interspace parlayed its success in commercial grade unit furniture and conceived an elevated offering. And they believe strongly in the co-living industry, which is really cool. And they already work with some of the larger companies like Star City. ISL Furnishings was founded with the mission to bring your brand to life. Their goal is to revolutionize the unit furniture experience, and they are driven by creativity. They believe that interiors should inspire brilliance. Every venue has its own voice. They exist to clarify that voice, interpret your brand vision, and deliver superior quality on time, every time, even during COVID. We actually interviewed the guys a while back, so you definitely want to check out that interview. And this week we're bringing on John, co-founder of Urban Campus. They are growing very rapidly. They actually closed another round of financing, which they are announcing right after this interview. Unfortunately, we couldn't say the amount, but we're excited for them. So let me go ahead and read the bio and we'll launch right into this week's episode. Urban Campus was founded in 2015 with the objective of redefining the leasing experience for residential tenants in Europe. The company designs and manages co-living and multifamily residences on behalf of institutional investors. It currently manages 2 residences in Madrid and has a pipeline of more than 30 projects in Spain, France, Italy, Switzerland, and Germany. Urban Campus developed a tenant-centric proprietary technology platform, Dunbar, to simplify and automate the administrative and financial processes, as well as to deliver additional services to its residents. John is also the founder and managing partner of Fluxus Ventures, a real estate and proptech firm with offices in Palo Alto and Zurich. To date, the firm has invested or incubated 14 startups over 3 continents. Prior to that, John was the founder and managing partner of Captiva Capital that raised $4.2 billion of equity capital from global institutions to fund 9 real estate operating platforms in 4 European countries and Singapore. These platforms manage more than 1,800 properties worth in excess of $15 billion. One of these platforms is Astria Office REIT, which owns 116 office buildings in Germany and has a market cap of $3 billion. John holds a BS and MBA from Leuven University and an MS in Material Sciences and Engineering from Stanford University. So again, amazing conversation. Glad he was able to jump on this week. So enjoy. So welcome to the show this week, John, with Urban Campus. Really appreciate you coming on. Where in the world are you right now at this time?
I'm in Zurich with a nice weather for once.
Oh, good. And it's February, end of February. Oh, that's terrific. And then Urban Campus, you guys are just strictly in Madrid, right?
We have 2 residences open in Madrid. We have a team in Paris, and we have recently opened an office in Milano, in Italy. And we have about 30 projects, mainly in France, Spain, and Italy, but we're also looking at Switzerland and Germany.
Perfect. So let's start from the beginning. When did you start Urban Campus? What was the ethos and the journey thus far? Because it's been a few years now, right?
It's been a few years. So most of my career was in real estate investment, where I managed funds that I launched with three partners, and these were institutional funds. So we were managing institutional capital. And in 2015, I had the opportunity to retire for a few days and sell that existing business to my younger partners. And one topic that I really thought was emerging was this residential question, not only from a product standpoint and from a supply demand issue, but also slowly but certainly the return of institutional investors back to residential multifamily residential investments. And that's the bet that we made in 2015 with Maxime Armand, who's the co-founder. We kind of felt that there was going to be not only enormous demand for what is now called the BTR-co-living sectors, but also that it would be of interest to institutions, and that would effectively create a real industry versus a niche or something that co-living was perhaps a few years ago. So that's how we started, and it's been a interesting journey because our approach was very techy. We're both engineers, so we spent a lot of time on developing a technology platform, which I may talk a little bit later, perhaps about. But that was really the brain of Urban Campus. We felt that we had to do we had to improve the processes of residential management. And as every person who has ever managed a residence know, there's no glory in residential management. It's a lot of details. It's a lot about doing a little bit better here and there. And so we spent a lot of time developing this platform, which is now fully operational.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, we'll definitely dive into that soon too. And so, obviously you have a background in finance, economics, and then now engineering, right? Did you go to Stanford?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Went there a few years ago to do a master's degree in material science and engineering. So spent a lot of time in Palo Alto, where we kind of still have very good contacts and relationships. And yeah, that was a extraordinary, interesting experience.
Did you guys raise any capital, or how did you guys start Urban Campus?
We did. So initially, we invested our own capital, and then we did two rounds, and one that we will actually announce next week. So a little bit early for the show, but we did one round where we brought Nexity, which is the largest property developer in France. They bought a relatively small stake 2 years ago, and have decided to reinvest. So that's part of the announcement next week. And again, our logic there was that the one of the key issue in Europe is to find land. It's to find opportunities, and the partnership with Nexity enables us to have a very healthy pipeline of deals, because effectively we're benefiting from their 10,000 plus employees working and helping us.
Nice. And then how many beds total do you guys have now?
Today it's small. We have in operation about 130, and we have on the different let's say stages of this construction and renovation and discussion about 4,500 beds.
Oh, nice. Okay. And then do you guys own all the property or not necessarily?
No, we decided early on to be pure managers. So we do sign, actually, we don't sign lease contract. We sign up essentially management contracts. And in some cases, we sign some structured leases because for some European investor, they have by tax structure to have a lease contract. They cannot just have a simple management contract.
And then, because it's funny, we've been, some of the interviews I've been doing, we've been finding out like what percentages people charge for that management fee. Here in the States for regular property management, it's like 10%. We had somebody on, gosh, just a week or two ago, they were getting 20% management fee for co-living. So what do you guys usually charge? Is it a range or does it depend on region?
We closer to 10 than to 20, but it's a range. It depends on the size of the residence. Largely, it's a question of size. We also have all clients are large institutions, all of them. And so, of course, an institution that come to us and say, "I want to develop, I don't know, 1,000 beds with you guys." We're not going to charge the exact same fees as an institution that comes and says, "I've got a building for you here," and it's a one-off. But it's around, let's say, between 12 and 15%.
Nice. Perfect. And then that was going to be a question I usually ask later in the show, but I'll ask it now. What are some needs where your company is right now? Do you guys, you just raised a round that you're going to announce next week? And do you guys, what are you looking for, more team members? Are you looking for more property? And if so, what's your ideal property? Like what cities, how many unit count?
Well, we're always going to look for new properties to manage. And that could be existing properties that we transform or land development. So that's always the case. We've been cautious not to go in too many directions. So we've been selective in terms of cities, in terms of neighborhoods. So we've been saying no, perhaps more than yes in the last few years. Also because we want to be sure that the rents are sustainable over a long period of time. And rents have gone up quite significantly in some of the European cities. So we were a bit cautious about the rental levels. Of course, no, have gone down. So we start to look at some of these properties again. We always looking for team members. That's true for Spain. That's true for Milan. That's true for Paris. We're actually probably one of the few co-living companies where there's more girls than boys, and actually in quite senior position as well. So we're very proud of that, and then we'll continue to recruit in these cities.
How many team members do you guys have now total already?
With 26.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's great. Okay, cool. And then I know we were chatting a little bit right before we hit record on, because I didn't even know this. You said that Airbnb just lost a big lawsuit in France with the short-term housing stuff and vacation rentals.
Yes, I do not. I didn't go through all of the details of this, but of course it's been an ongoing battle. Actually, it's not with Airbnb directly. It's with some of the owner of properties that were renting them through Airbnb. But this is something we've seen in Paris, but that's very true for Milan. It's true for Barcelona. It's true for many other cities. Is local governments have been very, let's say, cautious about the rental market and in particular the rents. At the same time, they kind of want to regulate everything and they want to be involved in everything. And at the same time, there's a screaming lack of affordable housing in pretty much every European cities. So that's something that we and our colleagues in Europe have to deal with, is this kind of an inconsistency of having local governments who on one side are trying to push for affordable housing, trying to push for new ways of sharing the space, etc., and at the same time want to control and regulate absolutely everything that people do. So we spend a significant amount of time with cities who sometimes don't understand co-living at all. For them, it's really a catch-all words, and therefore they kind of have their own interpretation of what it is. They're very concerned about that it doesn't get close to touristic apartment, which they have already regulated. And at the same time, when you explain that people are sharing the space and they've done this for quite some time, and we're just organizing this at Urban Campus and many others, they kind of get it, but it's sometimes a little bit difficult conversations.
Yeah, because you guys have like a 31-day minimum stay, or how do you guys structure the lease terms?
Yeah, the whole idea about urban campus is to provide our residents with a home. And so we try to have residents that stay with us for as long as they wish, of course, but on average, they stay 14 months.
Okay.
And just perhaps to give you a sense of who they are, the average age is 32. We have about 10% that are coming as a couple. We have many mothers that leave as a couple, but that's a different story. They tend to be both local for about 50% and international for 50%. And about two-thirds of them are employees and a third of them are freelance. That gives more or less the demographics. And so for us, what's very important is, and that was the whole idea of Coliving for us, is people want to have more than space. Of course, space is already difficult to find, it's expensive, but people want to have more than that. And what we believe they fundamentally want is the option, but not the obligation to socialize. So we spent quite some time to explain that co-living is not an obligation to live together, but it's a free option to meet other and participate to activities if you wish. If you want to write your memoirs and spend 3 months, alone, you can. There's no obligation for you to meet anyone. And that's definitely something that we see, and I would say increasingly with COVID,
Yeah.
this need for more than just the space, but also these social aspects. And we also added services that simplify people's life. And this is something again that is a reaction to the demand of a resident: is give me the services that I need, whether that is the right insurance, whether that is the food, whether that is a specific service that I may need at a given time that simplifies my life. And so Urban Campus, to put this together, we developed our own proprietary technology platform, but also we focused on trying to keep these residents for as long as they wish. And we have residents that are with us for almost 3 years now.
Nice. And then let's dive into the technology then. What exactly, that sets you guys apart? The tech is, it sounds like, is what is a big leading factor in that. Can you talk more about that?
Yes, well, the initial factor was that after 25 years in real estate, um, and I would say I'm not going to shock anyone when I say this: is real estate is real estate management is a very operational business. There's a lot of legal, financial, administrative processes. There's physical processes such as maintenance. And when you have service delivery and community, you've got a tremendous amount of things that you have to handle properly and actually better than it's done today. And so we really looked at in 2015, 2016, before we even conceived the first residence, we've spent a lot of time looking at all the residential leasing processes and looked at how can we automate them, how can we simplify them, how can we make sure that what we do is, of course, legal and acceptable by an institutional investor that may own these residences. And we effectively hired a team of product owners and developers, which today are still there and growing the technology platform with more features and applications. But we really decided to put this at the core of the experience for the tenant. And we interviewed quite a few people before we launched. And one of the key things that we heard again and again is the main from tenants and potential tenants was treat me like a human being, which sounds enormous when I say it, but actually most of them have had horrific experiences trying to find an accommodation in Paris, Milan, Frankfurt, Madrid, and many other cities. Especially if you are freelance, especially if you are young, especially if you don't have a long track record, and etc. People may ask, for guarantees from your parents, from someone else. It becomes very complicated. And all of us, because I'm including myself there, have seen, this residential opening where you go there with a file, that is 10 centimeters big, joining a long queue of people that are desperate to have, some accommodation, and where you have a landlord or a landlady that are taking decisions completely arbitrary. You don't know on what, logic and parameters. And we really felt that's enough. We cannot. That is already something that we can solve a lot, is to trust people, is to verify the information they give us very quickly, is to give them certainty of accommodation, is to simplify the payments, is to simplify the contract, is to simplify the all of the administrative tasks, and to focus the team on the relationship, on the human factors, etc., versus on the administration. And that creates already a different experience. Then we, of course, improved this technology by adding additional services and application to make sure that the experience that the tenant that we offer to the tenant is as, let's say, full and rich as possible. And that's really something we're going to continue to do. And we found investors that were prepared to back not only an operator, but actually a pretty, let's say, a pretty large investment in that technology for the years to come.
And is it iOS and Android? Is it like an actual app also for the residents to use?
It is, but actually the core is really developed. It's all proprietary. It's based on a number of languages, mainly Google-related languages. Let's say, without infringing, I hope, any copyright here. But it's completely developed internally. And from a user standpoint, the application, yes, it's on either on your computer or on your phone.
Oh, nice. Okay. No, that simplifies the process. And I love that you talked about, property managers do not treat residents, tenants, good at all. And the way you can see that is if you go to Yelp or Google reviews and you type in a management company, property management, and you see like how horrible the reviews are. And I'm like, how do they treat people like these? But when people are so desperate to find housing, I guess that they'll do anything, right?
I think that's very true. That's very true, Christine. And it's in a way extraordinarily sad and unacceptable. I think that maybe Europeans, we are a bit more emotional on these type of things, but we are in 2021. And when you have people that have the financial means, that have that have the credentials, the money to rent an apartment, that they have to act. Really, it's a fight for finding an apartment, and where you depend on a process that is completely obscure, that is potentially full of discrimination, where you don't know why you were selected or not selected, etc. That's unacceptable today. Tenants are clients, and the tenant landlord relationship has for ages been an antagonistic relationship in a certain way. And what we think we can do is at least move this towards more collaborative relationship. There are, of course, problems and things that need to be resolved. That's the nature of housing. That's the nature of managing physical space. But it doesn't have to be conflictual. It doesn't have, and the basis is to treat people properly.
Yeah.
And it's simple. And I think that all of the co-living operators that we know, I think are moving in the exact same direction. And only that is already creating value for tenants.
And then how do you're working with, obviously institutional capital. How do you define, because I'm sure they always ask you how to define co-living?
Well, I would say the easy definition is, of course, that it's a residence where you have a mixture of private spaces, usually studios or small apartments, and part is shared spaces and facilities and amenities. So, from a physical standpoint, I think it's a quite traditional definition. I think that an urban campus or definition goes further in a sense that for us, co-living is where people create part of their personal and professional network. And we've seen the evidence of this in the last 3 years. And this is perhaps something that you can experience when you have a residence of a certain size. If you manage co-living of, let's say 6 or 7 studios or rooms, you may not see the same type of dynamics that exist in larger residences. So at Urban Campus, the thing that we are probably the most proud of is the number of startups that were created in our campuses, the number of social projects and environmental projects that were started in our campuses, the number of people who met, the number of people who helped each other. We had, of course, an extraordinary difficult situation last year, especially in Madrid with COVID, and people being stuck for 2 months, literally stuck in the residence without much chance to get out. And we've seen how much people help each other and support each other, and so we feel very strongly that the operator has to give the tools for the residents to decide at their discretion whether they want to be involved in projects, whether they want to launch projects, but at least, or be involved in activities of all sorts, but at least they're not alone. And if they have some ideas and they want to share those, there will be people that can help them, that will listen, that will provide some feedback. And we see them on a daily basis. And that we think is what Urban Campus is about. It's, yes, we're providing the nice, apartments and the nice space and well located. And we think we're providing this at an affordable price. And we have the technology that creates an experience that is kind of a nice and convenient. But at the end of the day, people stay because they are part of this network, and that is the one that they want to create.
Love that. And then as far as events, maybe pre-COVID, what kind of events were you guys hosting? And then now during COVID, what kind of events are you guys hosting for the community?
So we have really different types of activities that really ranges from, we have something in Madrid that you would appreciate. It's called the salsa morito. So you dance the salsa together, you drink the moritos together, which has been extremely popular, and that became a monthly activity. But we also um, um, set up a lot of activities ranging from sports, culture, talks. We have different groups with different activity groups. We have actually a surf club in Madrid. They go with a car every month to Galicia to surf. We have a lot of people interested in entrepreneurship. We have a team that focuses more on how should I look at my career? How should I perhaps look at taking a different direction? So we have really things that are very, very broad. What we did, of course, at the time of COVID is security and safety of the residents was of prime importance. In Spain, we had a lot of laws that we needed to abide by, of course. And so we had to close a number of these communal areas. And of course, we had to stop, kind of any meetings of any sort. But we switched a lot online, and we gave the opportunity to all residents to become actors and not just followers. We told them, for sure you have some talents, for sure you have something that you want to share, for sure there's something that you do well. Now is the time to shine, and now is the time to either entertain others, help them understand a topic. And so we had all types of initiatives there, from yoga classes, how to cook the perfect mushroom risotto, how to select your wine, and a lot of these talks were also more professional. How to deal with loss of your job, how to deal with loneliness, how to relax, things like this. So we had a tremendous amount of activities that were created by the residents for the residents. Again, Urban Campus tried to support this. We organized some of these activities ourselves, and actually, it was a good experience. By the way, I was in Madrid during the confinement because, as a CEO of Urban Campus, the first thing I did when I heard that we were going to be confined was to go to Madrid to participate to that experience, because we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know how it was going to happen. So I literally participated to the community during these 3 months. And I have to say that I think it was a bad experience for a lot of people, but I think we managed to do to keep the morale of the residents. There was a lot of support between the different residents, and ultimately, it wasn't as a traumatic experience as we thought it would be in March last year.
And which building? I'd love for you to explain that building that you went to. Like how many beds are in that building? How big is the community where you stayed?
When I stayed, there's 40 studios.
Oh, in one building. And how many levels was the building?
It's a four-level building.
40. And so then they had to stay in their actual studio though, correct?
So they had to stay. So that residence, the studios are mostly individual studios. So they have their private kitchen as well. Not all of them, but most of them have the private kitchen. So and yeah, you had to stay literally in your studio. You could not get out except for groceries, going to the pharmacy, and of course, if you were sick. As a matter of fact, only two residents got sick. So that was a big question that a lot of, um, I would say, institutional investor asked us: is was it not a healthy issue to have a concentration of residents? The answer is no. When people respect the rules, the things go well. We had to, of course, close the fitness
Mhm.
area. We had to close, and then we could reopen partially the some of the lounges and the communal kitchen. And when the authorities in Madrid started to relax a little bit the rules, we were able to kind of open up these areas, but with a limited amount of people that could get in. And I have to say, with very few exception, people respected the rules, and everybody had a chance to benefit from these communal areas. I would say a month into the confinement.
Nice. Oh my gosh, that's great to hear. And then you guys said, so your future pipe, you said it was 2,300 beds like total in the future pipeline?
No, we have close to actually a bit more than 4,000
Oh.
studios, and that pipeline is mostly in France and in Spain, with some in Milan and some in Germany and Switzerland. But what also we decided to do last year was to extend our management contracts not only to co-living but actually to the residential market, the build to rent market in the US, the multifamily market. And through experience, we saw that when it comes to this multifamily market, the residents, especially families with young children, they want the same thing than co-livers. They want to have some shared spaces and communal areas. They want to have the services that simplify their lives. They want to have some community, maybe not as intensive as it is in co-living, but they want to know their neighbor. They want to be able to organize activities, etc. And that's again very, very true at the time where most companies are looking at allowing their employees to work from home a few days a week. And so you effectively have the office that is getting closer to home and home that is getting closer to the office. And we all know that the last thing you want is to be alone by yourself 24 hours a day, working from the same place where you're going to eat and sleep. And so we see this immense interest for institutional investors in particular, but developers as well, to create this build to rent product, this multifamily product that uses the same codes as co-living. And of course, we develop the same technology, deploy the same technology and the same community management, let's say, yeah, skills. And so in the 4,000 plus beds that I'm talking about, there's a mix. We have co-living residences and we have these multifamily residences as well.
When do those all go live by? Like what year?
So we have our first when we have additional openings this year. These are mostly buildings that are being transformed, not built. And the first buildings, the new residences, the new development, the first one will be in 2023, because of course it will not shock you or anyone that it takes a year to negotiate, it takes a year to get a building permit, it takes 2 years to build, and there's very little you can do to shorten that. That's also one of the things that is very different in Europe from North America, is the process to get a building off the ground is long, and it's not short of a miracle because you have so many hurdles to get there that we have a significant team involved in just getting that building off the ground.
Nice. And so let me ask you this too, John. What are some of your favorite co-living brands anywhere in the world? If you were to name one or two of them that you like what they're doing.
I like Common.
Okay.
I think this is, I like what they do. I would say that there's probably a couple of niche co-living brands that I found are smart. They're very small, so probably don't mean that much, but they're the people that have really thought about targeting certain communities or as people who have certain aspiration, which I found nice. I mean, I think there's generally a lot of people that are doing their best. I have zero patience on the other side for operators who have zero values, who are trying to surf on the trend, who are coming up with something that makes no sense, and who are usually extremely good at marketing themselves and effectively are part of the problem that I explained earlier, which is spreading co-living all over the place and sometimes creating a buzz around an idea and nothing concrete and nothing specific. Those were perhaps more visible 2 years ago than they are today, and they're probably more visible today than they will be in 2 years' time. But that's not great for our industry. It's create more harm than anything else. It's an industry that is young, full of energy, full of entrepreneurs. I think we will see in the next 10 years how many ways you can kind of use this co-living concept, etc. This industry doesn't need people that don't bring anything to it. We need, there's a lot of people that were on your shows recently. They competitors and friends, and we admire what they do, and we think that what they do is very interesting. We think that we have a different approach. Sometimes it's similar, sometimes it looks similar, but it isn't. And that's what we can hope for this industry, is that you have this energy and this passion that most operators show, because and we create a solution to a real problem, which is to house people that do not necessarily find an accommodation easily.
See, you answered my next question. Where do you see co-living in 10 years? Anything else to add to that part?
I think it's an industry. I, I think it's an industry that has a long way to go to reach its full development. Equally, I do not believe that it's an industry that will replace the multifamily or that will replace all form of residential offerings in the future. Um, I see co-living mostly as a solution that works very well for people who are single or couples, no kids. I know that there are some operators that I know looking at, extending this to families, etc. I think there will be barriers and difficulties to offer the same type of services that we offer to co-livers today to extend this to families, but maybe I will be wrong. I think it's an industry that needs a lot of people with a very clear view about what's the value they want to bring to the residents. And um, um, that, as I said, is already creating value for these residents. That they are, treated properly, that they have better offers, that they have, flexibility in the leases, that they have one bill with everything included. All of that is enormously helpful, and I think that this will, yeah, it has a lot of good days in front of itself as an industry. Where I would be cautious again is this industry also needs to mature. I mean, I'm a little bit older than my colleagues and my competitors. I've seen many, many times these good ideas that if they're not organized properly will lead to probably an industry that doesn't fulfill its potential. Whether that because it's going to be more regulated than it should, whether that it's because there will be people that are so much um, overpromise and underdeliver that the co-living industry gets a bad name. In Europe, we had a number of bankruptcies of people that signed leases at very high leases and could not fulfill the lease requirements, the rent requirements, and so went bankrupt or were could no longer afford to pay the rents. Of course, this is public. Institutions start to get nervous about this, etc. So we have to have an industry that starts to organize itself, and of course, there's a lot of initiatives already, but starts to mix the cool aspect of it with the professional management aspect that are very important for this industry to grow and succeed.
Ooh, perfect answer. And on that note, we will conclude this interview. John, I'm so glad we were able to bring you on this week. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Christine. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much for checking out this week's episode. And keep in mind, we are on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, and iTunes. And also, if you are a co-living community, you can reach out to us to be listed on the Kindred platform. That's KNDRD.io. It's a great way to showcase pictures, videos, virtual tours of your community. Also, we have a link in the show notes for our 3 books on co-living. You can also find one of them on Amazon.com if you'd like the print version. And lastly, a very quick shout out to our partners over at ISL Furnishings. They bring light to your vision and already work with some of the larger companies like Star City and Quarters. See you guys next week.